Well, the sex trafficking trial of rapper Sean Diddy Combs is continuing in a New York federal court. Combs' former girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, told the court she was blackmailed and abused by him, including at alleged drug-fueled parties. Mr. Combs has pleaded not guilty to 5 felonies. Northwestern University law professor Deborah Tuerkheimer is the author of Credible: Why We Doubt Accusers and Protect Abusers. She's been following the case from Illinois and she joins me now. Good to have you with us today, early in the morning for you there. Now, firstly, what have we learned from the testimony from these past 2 days, particularly from the star witness here, Cassie Ventura?
Well, thank you for having me. As you say, Cassie Ventura is the main witness. She is really the heart of the government's case. She's only begun her testimony. She is expected to be on the witness stand for several days. But what we've learned already is that she is describing harrowing events that made her feel humiliated, degraded. She's described sexual abuse that she in no way consented to by her own account. Of course, Combs has a very different version of events, but the case is starting off, in my view, very powerfully for the government.
And a lot of these things happened allegedly in these so-called freakouts, according to what Cassie had to say. What's been the consequences? And what happens in these freakouts, as was heard by the courts?
Yeah, so what she's described are parties, I suppose you could say, that involve lots of drugs, male escorts, and sort of a performance that was directed by Combs, as she tells it. Performances that in no way involved her own choosing of what she was expected to do, involved days in some cases, and involved at the end of these freak-offs a scene that she described very vividly, scene involving baby oil, scene involving blood, scene that just sort of left her devastated.
And what's been spoken of Combs's behaviors, during Cassie's relationship and in these parties, these freak parties that happened?
So she testified that he was very involved in these performances that she was expected to do, that he helped to procure the escorts, that he was very clear about what he wanted her to do and not to do. In one case, she described that someone would urinate on her. And at the same time, she described a good deal of physical violence at Combs' hands as well. So the picture that she painted for the jury, as I said, was a powerful one, and I'm sure was quite difficult to listen to. I should say she's also pregnant. She's in her 3rd trimester, and so I think she cut quite a figure on the witness stand.
And one of the more frightening details of this was the number of guns that Sean Combs had kept. What has the court heard about that?
Well, that is going to be part of this case. The charges include a racketeering charge. The idea is that Combs, with his associates, ran a criminal enterprise, and that enterprise included violence and sexual abuse, but also kidnapping and forced labor and arson and other crimes, obstruction of justice. And so the government's job will be to paint a picture of Combs, again, and his colleagues as really being part of a violent criminal racketeering enterprise.
And how will Combs' defense team be looking to focus its case?
Yeah, the defense is that Combs may be a very unsavory character. He may have committed domestic violence, and in fact, he is on video tape that was released on CNN committing domestic violence. So they can't turn away from that. But the team is saying to the jury, he's not here to be judged for that incident. He's not here to be judged for his sexual choices. These were all consensual acts. These women made adult choices, and this is not a federal case.
And if he is found guilty, what's he facing in terms of sentencing?
He could be in prison for the rest of his life.
Yep. Because these are pretty serious charges. Now, how does this case compare, with the likes of Harvey Weinstein, who has been convicted of sex crimes?
Well, what's so interesting is that, as you say, Harvey Weinstein has been convicted, but his New York conviction was overturned. His California conviction remains. But he's being retried. Weinstein is being retried in Lower Manhattan, in the very same neighborhood that we're seeing Combs's trial. So these two men are both being prosecuted. The cases have certain similarities that center around the idea of using power, using control in order to coerce sex. And so while there are many differences between them, I think that's the core that lies at both.
And finally, is there a sense in the US at least that the people who do occupy these powerful positions can no longer use the power and money they have to get away, particularly with sex crimes and violence against women?
The Me Too explosion, I think, did make a significant difference in terms of how people think about power and accountability. But there is by no means kind of a problem that's been solved. And if anything, I think in the States, we're seeing a bit of a backsliding with some of these cases. So how Weinstein ends, and to our conversation, how Combs ends, how this case ends, I think will be perceived as a very powerful expression of where we are with this movement.
Okay, we'll see what happens in the weeks to come. Professor Deborah Tuerkheimer, thank you very much for speaking with us.
Thank you.